I want you to just imagine this scenario for a second and really try to put yourself in this physical space with me.
Oh, I love these thought experiments.
Yeah.
Set the scene.
Okay, so you are walking into a brand new office building. It's your very first day at a new job.
A totally clean slate.
Exactly. You've got that fresh steaming cup of coffee warming your hands. You can feel that stiff corrugated cardboard sleeve against your
Oh,
fingers.
it's the quintessential first day coffee shield.
Right. So you step through the glass doors, you take a deep breath, and you can actually smell that distinct, slightly sharp chemical scent of brand new carpet.
Mixed with maybe a little bit of fresh paint.
Yes, exactly that smell. And suddenly, washing over your entire body is this immense visceral wave of physical relief.
Because you finally made it out.
You feel this tension just leave your shoulders, tension you didn't even realize you were carrying around for the last year. You have finally escaped.
Escape the old environment.
Escape that incredibly toxic, constantly complaining coworker at your last job.
Oh, we all know that coworker.
Right. The one who made every single morning feel like this grueling emotional marathon. The one who gave you that horrible spike of Sunday night dread in your stomach every weekend.
It's the worst feeling in the world. But right now, in the new lobby, you are free.
You are totally free. The slate is clean.
And honestly, that is arguably one of the most intoxicating sensations we can experience as human beings.
It really is.
It's that profound sense of a fresh start that we all just inherently crave. It's this belief that simply changing our geographical coordinates, or getting a new corporate email address is going to fundamentally alter our daily happiness.
So you ride that high, you go find your new desk in the open plan layout, you sit down, you meticulously arrange your pens.
Got to get the desk aesthetic right.
Oh, totally. You adjust the lumbar support on the new chair, and then you turn to say a cheerful hello to the person sitting in the cubicle right next to you.
Here we go.
And within 5 minutes, literally 5 agonizing minutes, they let out the specific, heavy, world-weary sigh.
Uh-oh. I know where this is going.
And they just start complaining. First, it's about the management. Then it's the harsh overhead lighting. Then the traffic on their commute.
And there it is.
And this cold, sinking realization just drops like a stone into your stomach. Because this brand new person sitting 3 feet away from you possesses the exact same negative, draining personality as the coworker you just spent 6 months plotting to get away from.
Wow. It's a different face, a different name, a different zip code.
But it is an identical energetic signature.
Yeah, the physical scenery underwent a complete renovation, but the underlying script of your daily experience remained entirely unaltered.
And honestly, is there anything more thoroughly exhausting than that?
It's soul-crushing.
It's that profound, dizzying confusion we all feel when we realize we are sprinting on a treadmill, but we totally convinced ourselves we were running a marathon. It makes you want to just rest your forehead on the keyboard.
Because you're putting in so much effort to go nowhere.
Right. Why does this same scenario continually hunt us down? We hustle, we grind, we endure the stress of interviewing, we change jobs.
We move across the country.
We end relationships and start new ones. We spend massive amounts of energy trying to fix the physical circumstances. It's like we're constantly running around with a fire extinguisher putting out localized fires.
But the house keeps catching on fire anyway.
Exactly. It never seems to actually change the overarching pattern of our lives. The same archetypes just keep showing up.
Which perfectly brings us to the central architecture of our discussion today.
Yes, let's get into the actual mechanics of this.
Because the framework we are exploring today, based on an incredible stack of anonymous research, suggests that the reason we feel this pervasive exhaustion is actually quite simple.
Why the universe seems to possess this bizarre sense of humor, sending the same coworker in different biological suits.
Right. It's because we have been attempting to solve our life's challenges completely in reverse.
In reverse, okay.
We are aggressively treating the symptom while entirely ignoring the cause.
And to figure out exactly why this happens, and more importantly, how you, the listener, can actually dismantle this treadmill, we're synthesizing some pretty intense source material today.
It's a fascinating collection of data.
We're looking at recent research papers in quantum mechanics, cellular biology journals focusing on epigenetics, and some incredibly dense theoretical frameworks on the nature of consciousness.
But we're going to break it all down so it makes practical sense.
Exactly. Our mission is to take these disparate scientific and philosophical threads and weave them together to understand this backward approach to living.
Because the friction is real.
Oh, it's so real. I know you, the listener, sitting right there. Maybe you are gripping your own stiff cardboard coffee sleeve right now. You have felt the friction of this treadmill.
We all have.
So if our default method of changing our lives is backwards, how do we begin to orient ourselves in the correct direction?
Well, to start, we have to establish a fundamental distinction in how we expend our energy. We basically need to categorize our efforts into two buckets.
Okay, what are the buckets?
We have local effects and we have cascading effects.
Mm-hmm.
And the tragic flaw in the modern human condition is that the vast majority of us are conditioned to spend our entire finite existence utterly consumed by local effects.
Local effects. So when you say local, I'm assuming you mean our immediate, tangible, physical environment?
Exactly.
Like the things we can touch, see, and physically manipulate with our hands.
That is precisely the realm of the local effect. It's a state of perpetual reaction to the localized phenomena directly in front of your face.
Like trying to force physical matter to bend to your will.
Yes. Through sheer brute force, busyness, frantic physical action, quitting the job to escape the coworker is a local action.
Reorganizing the furniture in your living room to somehow cure your depression, that's a local action.
Arguing with the current physical reality as it exists in this microsecond. And the thing is, it's incredibly draining because from a physics standpoint, you are attempting to manipulate the densest, most resistant form of energy available.
It kind of feels akin to standing on the slick wooden deck of a ship in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane.
Oh, that's a great visual.
The wind is howling, the swells are 40 feet high, and you're leaning over the railing, just frantically trying to smooth out the chaotic ocean waves with a tiny, flimsy plastic paddle.
Just smack it in the water.
Right. You're technically doing something. You're sweating, your muscles are burning, you're putting in the hours. You are hustling.
But the ocean is entirely indifferent to your plastic paddle.
It doesn't care at all. The sheer scale of the environment renders your local physical action totally meaningless.
And the exhaustion in that scenario is inevitable because the waves are endless. You can't out-paddle the ocean.
So how do we stop paddling?
If you have any intention of creating a sustainable fundamental shift, if you want to actually calm the ocean rather than just fight the current wave, you have to abandon the plastic paddle entirely.
Okay, dropping the paddle.
You have to stop operating at the local level and shift your focus to the second bucket. Cascading effects.
Cascading effects, how are those different?
These are principles and actions that originate entirely outside the physical environment. They start in the inner world.
The inner world.
Yeah, and when you adjust the mechanism at this inner origin point, the effects don't just change one localized variable. They cascade outward. They alter multiple facets of your physical life simultaneously.
So, to borrow the nautical theme, you aren't trying to flatten a single wave with a piece of plastic. You are altering the barometric pressure of the weather system that is generating the storm in the first place.
Exactly. You change the weather, the waves naturally flatten out on their own.
Okay, so the concept of altering the weather system rather than fighting the wave makes intuitive sense. But I have to apply some friction here.
Please do. That's why we're here.
Because we are biological, physical entities, right?
We absolutely are.
We navigate a world of concrete, steel, and gravity. Like, if the transmission in my car fails on the highway, that is a dense, heavy, undeniably physical problem.
And it requires a tow truck.
Right. It requires a physical mechanic with physical tools, suggesting that some invisible, untouchable inner world can somehow override or dictate the terms of this heavy reality we interact with every day. It just feels like a massive leap.
I get it. The friction you're applying is completely rational. It is the exact byproduct of our evolutionary conditioning.
Our biology kind of demands that we focus on the physical.
Exactly. Our sensory organs, our eyes, our ears, our nerve endings, they are highly specialized instruments designed solely to detect physical threats and physical matter.
Because if a tiger was chasing you, you couldn't just inner world it away.
Right. You had to physically run. We are biologically wired to believe that what we can touch is the ultimate authority.
So how do we bypass that wiring?
To dismantle this conditioning, we have to clearly define the anatomy of this inner world. Because it is not some passive state of wishful thinking.
It's not just sitting on a couch hoping a new transmission magically materializes in your driveway.
Definitely not. It is an active engine comprised of two distinct measurable planes. First, we have the mental plane.
What does that include?
This encompasses your conscious cognitive processes, your active visualizations, and the recurring neural loops of your daily thoughts.
So it's the internal rendering engine of the mind, like the theater where we rehearse our futures.
Beautifully put, yes. And second, we have the spiritual or energetic plane.
Yeah?
And for our purposes today, based on the source material, we can strip away any mystical connotations entirely.
Let's keep it grounded in the physics of it.
Exactly. Let's look at the literal definition of the word emotion. That is energy in motion.
Yeah.
It is the physiological and energetic feeling state of your biological system.
Okay, so we have the mental focus and the emotional energy.
Yes. And the synthesis of these two planes, the directed focus of your thoughts, combined with the fuel of your emotional energy, it doesn't simply passively observe the physical world.
It's doing something much more active.
The research we are analyzing points to a radical inversion of how we think life works. This inner realm is actually the primary driver, the foundational blueprint of your physical reality.
Wait, if the inner realm is the blueprint, you are implying that the solid physical world we are so obsessed with fixing is merely the secondary byproduct.
The physical world is just the ink on the printed page. The inner world is the software code generating the document.
Oh, wow.
You cannot fix a typo by rubbing your finger aggressively against the printer paper.
You'll just smudge the ink. You have to go into the word processor and change the text.
Exactly. But to comprehend the mechanics of why the inner world possesses this absolute authority over the physical world, we have to look really closely at the actual structural integrity of physical matter.
We have to get into the science of the empty space.
We do. We have to pivot from the abstract psychology of the mind and dive into the literal microscopic architecture of the physical universe.
See, we're so accustomed to the standard high school physics model of reality.
The neat, tidy little drawings.
Right, those little Bohr models. The idea that an atom is like a miniature solar system with a solid cluster of protons and neutrons in the center and these solid little electron planets orbiting around them.
It's very visually satisfying.
It gives us a very comforting sense of solidity and permanence.
It is a comforting model, but quantum mechanics discarded that notion nearly a century ago. It's actually a wildly misleading representation of solidity.
How so?
When you bypass the macroscopic illusion, when you really zoom in and observe the actual building blocks of your coffee cup, or your car's transmission, or your own biological tissues, you are not looking at solid little planetary spheres.
What are you actually looking at?
You are looking at a probability cloud. And, more shockingly, you are looking at an abyss.
An abyss?
An atom is roughly 99.99999% empty space and energy fields.
Okay, we hear percentages like that thrown around, but it is incredibly difficult for the human brain to truly conceptualize what 99.9999% empty space actually means in a practical day-to-day sense.
It is hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, no.
So let's apply a mathematical visualization from the sources to scale it for human comprehension.
I'd love that. Scale it for me.
Consider the entire human population on Earth right now.
Yeah.
Over 8 billion individual physical bodies.
8 billion people. That's a massive amount of physical mass.
Right. Now imagine if you possess the technological capability to compress every single atom within every single one of those human beings.
Okay.
And you entirely removed that 99.99999% of empty space and energetic fields from every atom.
So you're compacting us down to only the absolute, irreducible solid matter, taking all the space out.
Yes. The remaining solid physical matter of the entire human race, all 8 billion of us combined, would be so infinitesimally small it could comfortably fit inside a single standard-sized sugar cube.
The scale of that is almost nauseating.
It really breaks the brain a bit.
You are stating that if you stripped away the energetic void, the actual tangible stuff of humanity, the entire species fits in the palm of my hand.
Easily.
The rest is just a ghost.
A ghost made of vibrating energy, yes. Everything you perceive as overwhelmingly solid, heavy, and immovable is fundamentally derived from consciousness and energetic frequencies.
It really flips your understanding of the world completely upside down.
Which brings us to a concept called the principle of polarity.
How does that work?
Imagine a vertical spectrum. At the very top, you have pure, high-frequency, non-physical energy. And at the very bottom, you have dense, slow-moving physical matter.
Okay, a spectrum from energy down to matter.
It is imperative to understand that they are not two different substances. They are the exact same substance, merely vibrating at radically different frequencies.
Like water, ice, and steam.
That is the perfect analogy. They're the exact same chemical compound expressing itself differently based purely on thermal energy.
So matter is just frozen energy.
Matter is simply energy whose vibration has slowed down so significantly that it becomes perceptible to our localized sensory organs.
Okay, so if matter is just the densest, slowest form of energy, then when I am entirely focused on the physical world,
When you're hustling, forcing, arguing with that coworker,
stressing over the physical bank account.
yes.
Yeah.
When you do that, you are electing to operate within the 0.00001% of reality. You are trying to move the iceberg by pushing on the tiny tip that is exposed above the water while completely ignoring the massive structure beneath the surface. It is a wildly inefficient use of your life force.
Because I'm ignoring the 99% that's actually driving the ship.
Precisely. Conversely, when you learn to operate skillfully within the inner world of your focused thoughts and your elevated emotional states, you are directly interacting with the 99.99999% of reality that governs the system.
You are working at the level of the foundation.
You are writing the code rather than fighting with a tiny derivative fraction of the printout.
Okay, the mathematical logic of that is incredibly sound, but it inevitably summons a very sharp, very practical contradiction for me.
Let's hear it.
If my physical body is essentially a walking, talking cloud of empty space and electromagnetic fields,
Which it is.
and my heavy wooden bed frame is a corresponding cloud of empty space and fields,
Also true.
why, when I wake up in the dark at 3 a.m. and stub my toe against that bed frame, does it feel so agonizingly, brutally solid?
Well, I've been there.
Like, there is absolutely nothing ethereal or empty about the pain signal shooting up my leg right then.
And your biological nervous system is functioning perfectly in that scenario. The pain is a very real, necessary, localized feedback mechanism to keep your avatar safe.
But why didn't my empty space just pass through its empty space?
The reason that interaction feels so solid, the reason you don't simply pass through the bed frame like a ghost, is electromagnetic repulsion.
Repulsion.
The electron clouds of your toe are violently repelling the electron clouds of the wood. But more importantly to our framework, it feels solid, precisely because of that slow, dense frequency we just discussed.
Right, because it's at the bottom of the polarity spectrum.
Yes, physical matter is incredibly sluggish, compressed energy, and because it moves at such a glacial pace compared to the speed of thought, it creates a structural phenomena that is essentially the crux of all human frustration.
What is that phenomenon?
Lag time.
Lag time, like the delay in a live television broadcast.
Or the friction in a mechanical system, yes. Exactly like a broadcast delay, but on a cosmic scale.
So what is actually lagging?
Because the physical medium is so dense and resistant, it requires a significant duration of time for the fast-moving, high-frequency energy of your inner thoughts and emotions to compress down and manifest as physical circumstances.
The physical world literally just cannot update instantly.
It physically cannot. This mechanism is often referred to in these philosophical frameworks as the mirror principle.
The mirror principle.
The universe functions as a delayed reflective surface for your internal frequency.
Okay, so if the universe is a mirror, then the physical environment I am sitting in right now, this room, my job, my current bank account, it's just a reflection, but a delayed one.
The physical world is merely an echo of who you have been being internally.
An echo.
There's a psychological maxim from the sources that summarizes this perfectly. You do not manifest what you desire, you manifest what you are.
You don't get what you want, you get what you are.
Exactly. The current, tangible circumstances of your existence. The exact numerical balance in your checking account, the specific dynamics of your romantic relationship, the presence of that complaining coworker, they are not indicators of your future trajectory.
What are they then?
They are your energetic history.
Energetic history, wow. That completely recontextualizes the present moment.
It changes everything about how you view your day.
It implies that my life right now, today, actually has very little to do with the thoughts I'm thinking today.
Almost nothing to do with today's thoughts.
The present physical moment is just a delayed accumulation, like a fossilized record, of the thoughts, anxieties, and emotional states I was dwelling on weeks or even months ago.
You are continually walking through the crystallized manifestation of your past inner state.
That's haunting, but also kind of liberating.
To visualize the friction this causes, consider this analogy from the texts. The smiling in the mirror analogy.
Okay, paint the picture.
Imagine you walk into your bathroom and you stand in front of a heavy physical glass mirror. You are in a terrible mood. You're completely consumed by stress from work, so you have a deep, angry scowl on your face.
Naturally, the reflection scowls back at me.
Of course. Now you decide you are tired of being miserable. You want the reflection to show you a joyful face.
So the logical action is to smile myself. I have to change the source.
You change the source. You smile. But in the mechanics of this specific universe, because of the dense lag time of physical matter, the reflection does not mimic your smile instantaneously.
There's a delay.
There's a massive delay. You are smiling, but the mirror is still displaying your energetic history. The reflection is still scowling at you.
Honestly, that is a recipe for pure psychological torment.
It really is.
You are doing the internal work, you are holding the positive frequency, you are doing everything quote unquote right, and the physical reality is just glaring back at you, aggressively denying your effort.
Which leads to the default human reaction. Think about it. What do the vast majority of people do in that situation?
They probably just give up.
They hold the smile for 24, maybe 48 hours. They stare at the mirror, they see that the stubborn scowl is still there persisting, and they succumb to the illusion of the lag time.
They think it's broken.
They throw their hands up, declare, "This inner work is a scam, it doesn't work at all," and they drop the smile.
Which means they revert right back to the scowl, ensuring that the mirror will never, ever change.
Exactly. Or they attempt an even more destructive local action.
What's worse than giving up?
They grab a physical dry erase marker, and they attempt to draw a fake smiley face directly onto the surface of the glass.
Oh, that is the ultimate metaphor for toxic positivity.
Right, just slapping a veneer of superficial cheerfulness over a miserable physical reality.
You're entirely avoiding the actual internal alignment. You're painting the glass, trying to force the local environment to look pretty, while underneath, the true reflection is still just boiling with resentment and anxiety.
And the marker on the glass does absolutely nothing to alter the light waves projecting the reflection. Your inner state hasn't fundamentally mutated at all.
This biological and energetic lag time, it perfectly diagnoses the classic New Year's resolution failure rate, doesn't it?
Oh, it maps onto it flawlessly.
An individual decides they are going to completely overhaul their physical health. They are intensely motivated on December 31st.
The energy is high.
January 2nd arrives, they go to the gym, they endure the discomfort, they sweat, they lift the heavy iron, they repeat the exact same process on January 4th.
Doing the work.
But then on January 5th, they stand in front of that literal bathroom mirror, analyze their waistline, and experience this crushing wave of deflation.
Because the physical architecture of their body hasn't miraculously transformed into a fitness model overnight.
Right. They demanded an instantaneous reflection from a biological and physical medium that inherently requires time to process new information.
They allow the delayed echo of their past habits, the scowl in the mirror, to convince them that their present actions were entirely futile.
They quit because the lag time weaponized their own impatience against them.
That's a great way to phrase it.
But this demands a very specific practical metric from us. If I am standing in front of the mirror and I have committed to changing the source, exactly how long is this lag time?
People always want to know the timeline.
Of course. How long must I endure the psychological friction of holding the smile before the dense machinery of the universe finally rotates and the reflection curves its lips upward?
Well, the duration naturally fluctuates based on the scale of the paradigm shift. A new job might take longer than a good mood.
Sure.
But observational data across behavioral psychology and neuroplasticity suggests a distinct transition point. With relentless, focused, daily practice, the juncture where the accumulated pressure of the energetic inner world finally overrides the inertia of the physical outer world typically requires a sustained period of 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 consecutive weeks of maintaining an internal posture that completely contradicts the external evidence your eyes are feeding you.
It is not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. That requires a level of cognitive discipline and profound trust that most of us are simply not trained to deploy.
It requires immense discipline, but understanding the underlying science actually fortifies that trust.
Because it's not just magic.
Exactly. That 6 to 8 week time frame is not some arbitrary mystical number pulled from the ether. It is deeply rooted in your physical biology as much as your quantum energetics.
Well, how does the biology tie in?
We have to examine the biological translation mechanism. How does an invisible, weightless, energetic thought actually translate into a dense physical shift in reality over that 2-month period?
Well, we know through basic neuroscience that thoughts do not exist in a vacuum, right? They aren't just invisible clouds hovering above our heads.
Not at all. A thought is a highly specific physical trigger. Every single time you generate a thought, your brain's hypothalamus immediately translates that cognitive event into a corresponding chemical peptide.
So a thought becomes a chemical.
Instantly. Your emotions are not just abstract feelings, they are highly complex, measurable biochemical cascades traveling through your body.
And what do those chemicals do?
Well, the trillions of individual cells functioning within your biological ecosystem possess specific receptor sites on their outer membranes. And these receptors are designed to absorb and adapt to the biochemical weather you are consistently broadcasting through your bloodstream.
Cellular weather. That is an incredibly vivid way to conceptualize our internal environment.
It really makes it tangible. Consider the visceral, sensory reality of this mechanism. If you spend your days dwelling on perceived slights, agonizing over financial fears, or projecting anger at the coworker.
You know, the usual Tuesday.
Right. If you do that, your brain is actively flooding your bloodstream with cortisol, adrenaline, and stress hormones. You are actively generating a bitter, freezing, violent hurricane of a climate for your cellular infrastructure.
And the fascinating, or honestly terrifying part, is that you can literally feel the barometric pressure of that storm dropping in your physical tissues.
You can feel the weather change inside you.
Think about when you ruminate on a stressful email. Your jaw clenches up, your shoulders slowly migrate up toward your ears.
Your digestive system tightens into a knot.
Your breathing becomes incredibly shallow. Your physical structure is literally bracing itself against a cold internal wind.
Now apply evolutionary biology to that scenario. Your cells have one primary directive: survival.
They just want to stay alive.
Right. So if you subject them to a perpetual hurricane, they will physiologically adapt to survive in a harsh, toxic environment.
How do they adapt?
They will literally downregulate certain receptors and build new ones designed exclusively to absorb stress hormones. The hurricane becomes their baseline homeostasis. They crave the storm because it's all they know.
Wow.
But conversely, if you actively and intentionally cultivate thoughts of abundance, curiosity, and profound gratitude, you synthesize an entirely different neuropeptide cocktail.
You change the weather system.
You release oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. You generate a warm, nutrient-rich, sunny climate.
And how do the cells react to the sunshine?
The cellular membranes relax. They become more permeable to nutrients. They repair DNA more efficiently. They physically adapt to thrive in the sunshine.
So if the cells are physically adapting, literally rebuilding their actual receptor sites to accommodate the new chemical weather, that explains the 6 to 8 week lag time perfectly.
It's physical construction time.
It takes physical time for cellular turnover to occur, for the old cells addicted to the storm to die off, and for the new cells calibrated to the sunshine to replicate and take over the system.
Yes, exactly.
So for those 2 months, I am essentially terraforming my own biology, just waiting for the physical infrastructure to catch up to the new climate.
You are terraforming the biology, yes. And as that biological shift reaches critical mass within you, a deeply powerful, unavoidable cosmic mechanism is triggered.
What mechanism?
The law of balance.
The law of balance. How does the universe define balance in the context of my cellular receptor sites?
Well, the underlying architecture of the universe mandates equilibrium. Nature abhors a vacuum, and it equally abhors a sustained frequency mismatch.
So inner and outer have to match.
Exactly. The outer physical world must eventually and inevitably mathematically match the inner energetic frequency.
Okay, so what happens when I change my weather?
When you successfully, intentionally shift your cellular weather from a raging decades-long storm to persistent, unshakable sunshine, and you actually endure the lag time to hold it there, you fracture the existing equilibrium.
You knock the localized universe out of balance.
Yes. Your internal high-frequency biological and energetic state no longer matches the dense, low-frequency physical circumstances surrounding you.
The friction peaks at that point, because internally, I'm operating as the sunny, expansive ecosystem, but externally, I'm still physically sitting at the exact same desk, next to the exact same complaining coworker, staring at the same depressing bank balance.
You are living in a state of severe dimensional dissonance. And the law of balance dictates that the universal system cannot sustain that energetic tension indefinitely.
This thing has to give.
A balancing force must intervene to resolve the paradox. The system is forced into one of two inevitable outcomes.
What's option one?
Option one, the universe must rapidly reorganize your external physical reality to match your new, dominant, sunny cellular state.
How does that look in real life?
This manifests as sudden synchronicities. A recruiter calls you out of absolutely nowhere with a better opportunity.
Or the toxic coworker abruptly transfers to a different department across the building.
Exactly. Or you suddenly perceive a solution to a problem that was literally invisible to you when you were at a lower frequency.
So the physical environment rearranges itself to accommodate the new blueprint. I love option one, but what is the second option?
Option 2. The tension proves too much for your conscious discipline. You abandon the effort, and you revert your inner state back to the old, comfortable negative weather pattern just to match the existing physical reality.
You go back to the storm because it's familiar.
Right, because the overarching system does not possess a moral preference for your happiness. It only cares about resolving the mathematical mismatch. It does not care which side of the equation changes, as long as balance is restored.
It just wants the math to balance out. Or, okay, the theoretical elegance of the law of balance is undeniable. But we really have to ground this in the brutal reality of a Tuesday afternoon.
Let's do it. Tuesday afternoon reality check.
Maintaining that sunny, cellular weather is relatively simple when you are isolated in a quiet room, right? Like you're meditating on a comfortable cushion, maybe you've got some nice incense burning.
Sure, anyone can be zen in a spa.
But the physical world is aggressively intrusive. What happens when you leave that meditation cushion, you get into your car, and someone recklessly cuts you off in heavy traffic, nearly causing a severe accident?
The adrenaline spikes.
Or you arrive at the office, you sit down, and you open an incredibly hostile, unreasonable email from your boss. How do we possibly maintain sunny cellular biology when the heavy physical reality is actively screaming at us, demanding an immediate, localized, stressful reaction?
That right there is the crucible. That is where the theory is tested against the harsh reality of human existence.
Because it's hard.
It is so hard. And if you continue to view yourself purely as a biological creature like just a meat suit reacting to environmental stimuli, you will fail that test every single time.
Why?
Because it is biologically impossible to resist the storm from that localized vantage point. The adrenaline spike will hijack your prefrontal cortex, and you will be dragged right back into the familiar hurricane before you even realize what happened.
So how do we stop the hijack?
To immunize yourself against the intrusiveness of the physical world, we have to execute a radical zoom out. We have to completely shift our perspective from the microscopic biology of ourselves to the macroscopic, fundamental architecture of existence itself.
How far out do we need to pull the camera lens to escape the gravity of a hostile email from a boss?
We must pull it all the way back to the genesis of the cosmos.
Oh, wow. Okay. We're going all the way back.
We have to seriously examine a framework that is moving rapidly from the fringes of theoretical physics into mainstream academic discourse.
And what is that framework?
It's the concept that our reality functions dynamically and mathematically like a highly sophisticated computational simulation.
The simulation hypothesis. Okay, it is a wildly popular concept in pop culture right now.
Everyone's talking about it.
But it's usually discussed in, like, late-night dorm room conversations, you know? It often feels inherently ungrounded, like it's just science fiction designed to distract us from the very real consequences of our physical actions.
I completely understand that reaction.
Yeah.
It sounds like pure science fiction. Until you force yourself to confront the actual mathematics and the bizarre anomalies popping up in quantum mechanics.
What kind of anomalies?
Well, leading theoretical researchers have highlighted a massive logical discrepancy regarding the Big Bang.
The origin of everything.
Right. If you adhere strictly to the materialist worldview, the idea that the universe is composed solely of solid physical chunks of dead matter, the idea that the entire infinite cosmos, with all its precise laws and constants, just violently exploded out of an infinitely dense point of absolute nothingness.
It's a lot to swallow.
It is logically incoherent. It requires a suspension of disbelief that honestly rivals any theology. It is a massive physical contradiction.
But if we run the Big Bang through a different lens, like through the lens of information theory or the simulation model,
Then the contradiction just evaporates.
how so?
If you view reality fundamentally as an information processing system, the Big Bang mirrors an event we are all very familiar with. It behaves exactly, mathematically, like a colossal computer system booting up from a zero state.
A boot up sequence.
Yes, when you press the power button on a complex machine, what happens? There's a sudden, explosive influx of data that rapidly renders an expansive digital environment that simply did not exist a fraction of a millisecond prior.
Like turning on a monitor and suddenly there's a desktop.
Precisely. The universe expanding is simply the system allocating rendering resources.
The logic there is unsettlingly pristine. Instead of matter creating a universe, it is data rendering a space.
Exactly.
But surely there is more empirical evidence than just a philosophical reframing of the origin story. I mean, do we have math to back this up?
The evidence descends directly into the structural equations of the universe. Researchers analyzing the deepest, most complex mathematical frameworks designed to unite quantum mechanics and general relativity, specifically within superstring theory, have stumbled upon something that completely defies materialist explanation.
What did they find?
Embedded within the equations that describe the fundamental fabric of space-time itself, they have found literal functional structures of computer code.
Wait, I want to be extremely precise here. When you say computer code, are we using a loose metaphor, like saying the brain is quote-unquote wired a certain way?
We are absolutely not using a metaphor. We're talking about literal binary strings of ones and zeros.
Literal ones and zeros. In the math of the universe.
Yes. Specifically, they have discovered error-correcting block codes.
What are those?
These are the exact mathematical sequences invented by pioneers of information theory in the 1940s to prevent data degradation when transmitting digital information across telephone lines or internet servers.
So the universe has built-in Wi-Fi troubleshooting.
Basically, yes. The universe possesses built-in mathematical checksums to ensure its own informational integrity.
Okay, if the underlying equations of the cosmos contain the exact same error-correcting binary code that runs my web browser, my mind is experiencing a slight structural collapse right now.
It's a lot to process.
If the universe possesses the architecture of a computational rendering engine, what does that make human beings? Are we just complex subroutines? Are we just lines of code executing a pre-written script?
To navigate this without falling into pure nihilism, we can utilize a highly relatable structural analogy from the source texts. Let us map this entire concept onto a complex, open-world video game.
A video game. Okay, I can visualize that.
The physical world we navigate daily. The traffic jams, the corporate offices, the coffee cups, the gravity. That is the subset. It is the rendered environment of the game itself.
So the physical world is the screen.
Yes. And our physical bodies, the hands feeling the steering wheel, the vocal cords speaking, the biological toe that interacts with the bed frame, they are simply the digital avatars. They are the rendered characters running around within the constraints of the screen.
So my physical body, my entire biology, is just the avatar inside the rendered subset.
Yes. However, and this is the vital part, your consciousness, your inner world of intention and emotional frequency, is not generated by the avatar.
Where is it coming from then?
It is connected to the superset.
Yeah.
The superset is the hardware executing the simulation, the reality outside the rendered screen. More importantly, your consciousness represents the player holding the controller.
The crucial distinction between the player and the character.
It is the most vital distinction you can possibly make in your life. Because if you spend your life exclusively identifying as the character within the game,
If I believe I am nothing more than the biological avatar on the screen.
then you will live in a perpetual state of victimhood. You will be entirely at the mercy of the game's pre-rendered programming. When the environment generates a hostile boss or an unexpected financial crisis, the character naturally panics.
Because the avatar has absolutely no administrative privileges to alter the source code from within the screen.
Precisely. The character can only react to the pixels that have already been rendered. They can swing their plastic paddle at the digital ocean all day, but they can't change the physics engine.
But the moment you execute that zoom out, the moment you remember that you are the player sitting outside the screen holding the input device, your entire relationship to the localized adversity transforms.
You step out of the matrix, so to speak.
You realize you are not bound by the digital laws governing the avatar. You possess the administrative authority to input new commands, to alter the variables of the simulation from the outside in.
You have direct access to the superset.
This macroscopic perspective shift is incredibly liberating. It removes the immense, crushing burden of having to manually force the physical world to change with my physical hands.
You don't have to fight the screen anymore.
I don't have to rewrite the code by scratching at the monitor. But this introduces a massive logistical problem for me.
What's the problem?
I am not physically holding a plastic controller. My consciousness doesn't have a literal keyboard attached to it. What is the actual interface mechanism? How does the player transmit the new command lines into this reality rendering engine?
The interface is not physical. The command line you use to communicate with the rendering engine is entirely comprised of where you direct your attention and your emotional intention.
Attention and intention.
That sustained focus is your joystick.
Okay, so attention combined with intention.
Yes. To understand how to operate this interface without getting lost in the abstraction of simulation theory, We can visualize reality as an infinitely powerful 3D rendering engine.
Like the software they use to create cinematic special effects or architecture mock-ups.
Exactly like that. Let's trace the mechanics of that software. The tangible physical circumstances you are currently experiencing. Your apartment, your physical health, your coworkers. Those are the rendered frames.
They've already been drawn.
They have already been processed by the GPU and displayed on the monitor. They are fixed. You can't change them now. The inner, non-physical realm of your conscious focus is the command line terminal where the next frame is currently being calculated.
So the engine is perpetually rendering the next frame based entirely on the text I'm typing into the inner terminal.
Continuously rendering. Now imagine your current rendered frame features a massive pile of ugly gray digital debris right in the center of your living room.
And I absolutely despise this debris.
Of course you do. Now, if you spend your entire day staring at the monitor, complaining about the debris, analyzing how much you hate the gray pixels, and dedicating massive amounts of emotional bandwidth to your frustration with the debris,
What am I actually doing?
you are effectively typing the following command into the terminal. Focus parameter. Gray debris. Emotional weight. High.
Oh no. And the rendering engine is completely neutral, isn't it? It doesn't possess moral judgment or empathy.
It possesses zero judgment. It operates purely on algorithms. It reads the command line you submitted through your focused attention, processes the high emotional weight attached to it, and the algorithm mathematically concludes the player is highly engaged with the gray debris parameter, priority rendering allocated, generating more gray debris for the next frame.
So the very act of complaining about my reality, the act of dwelling on the anxiety, is literally executing the code to render more of the exact same hostile reality.
You are feeding the loop.
I am instructing the system to duplicate the problem.
Exactly. To clear the debris, to change the rendering, you must execute the hardest maneuver in the human experience.
What is it?
You must withdraw your attention from the unwanted frame currently on the monitor. You have to pivot to the command line and intentionally focus your inputs entirely on the vision of the clear, beautiful room you actually desire.
Even while my physical avatar is currently standing knee-deep in the gray debris.
Yes, that is the ultimate test.
Look, the theory is flawless, but the execution feels superhuman. Ignoring a pile of garbage that you keep physically tripping over requires incredible mental stamina. How do we operationalize this? We need practical, tactical methods.
We absolutely do.
What are the specific cheat codes to actually master this interface in daily life?
The sources provide a highly structured set of actionable strategies. These are daily practices designed to consistently rewrite the command line. The first is a diagnostic tool we can call the consciousness time log.
A time log, like an attorney tracking billable hours.
Conceptually similar, but you are tracking the allocation of your cognitive bandwidth. For one single typical day, you ruthlessly and meticulously track where your mental focus is residing every single hour.
Just writing down what I'm thinking about.
You document it objectively. You aren't just logging physical actions. You are auditing your inner world. You write down from 10 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. while organizing spreadsheets. I spent 45 minutes vividly, emotionally rehearsing a hypothetical, hostile argument with my manager that hasn't even happened yet.
Wow, that specific example is painfully universal. We dedicate massive amounts of processing power to rendering highly detailed simulations of future disasters.
We pre-pave our own anxiety. The time log is crucial because it shatters our illusions. It provides objective, quantifiable data regarding your actual mental weather.
It stops us from lying to ourselves about how positive we are.
Exactly. It forces you to look at the exact command lines you are actively feeding the rendering engine. When you review the log at the end of the day and realize you spent 6 out of 16 waking hours dwelling in a frequency of lack, resentment, or fear, the mystery of your life dissolves.
You realize exactly why the reflection in the mirror hasn't changed.
It strips away all the victimhood. It is a brutal reality check.
But awareness is only the first step. Once the log shows me that I am trapped in a negative rendering loop, how do I actually interrupt the momentum?
That requires the second tactical practice. Waking up and boosting. We have to accept our fallibility. We know we are going to get hooked by the localized physical world.
The coworker is going to say something triggering.
The bank is going to charge an unexpected fee. We will inevitably slip back into the reactive character mode.
So what's the goal then?
The objective of this practice is not to achieve flawless Zen perfection. The objective is to dramatically decrease your recovery time. So 5 times throughout your day, you schedule a deliberate pattern interrupt. You snap your consciousness back from the character to the player.
How do you practically execute a pattern interrupt when you are in the middle of a chaotic, high-stakes work environment?
It does not require you to roll out a yoga mat in the break room. It requires a maximum of 30 to 60 seconds. You physically step away from the immediate stimuli, look out a window, or simply close your eyes at your desk.
Just break the visual field.
Yes. You take one deep diaphragmatic breath to regulate the nervous system. You consciously acknowledge, I lost the macro perspective. I got pulled down into the subset.
Acknowledging you fell back into the game.
And then you intentionally override the terminal. You recall your vision, your desired rendering. You deliberately boost your emotional frequency back to a baseline of calm or ideally positive expectation. And only then do you step back into the flow of the physical day.
It is the cognitive equivalent of pausing the game to consult the map and reorient your coordinates, rather than just mashing buttons and running your avatar face first into the same digital wall repeatedly.
Exactly. It breaks the momentum of the algorithmic loop. The third strategy is designed to actively inject positive data into the system. It involves the deployment of appreciation bursts.
Appreciation bursts. Are we talking about injecting gratitude into random, mundane moments?
Yes, but with a critical caveat. This cannot be a sterile intellectual exercise. Merely reciting a rote mental list of things you are quote-unquote thankful for while your physical body is wound tight with stress does nothing to alter your energetic signature.
Right. It can't just be words.
It must be a deeply felt, sensory-rich experience. Let us use the morning commute as an example. You're in traffic. Instead of fusing with the anxiety being late, you grip the steering wheel.
Okay, engaging the physical senses.
You intentionally focus on the tactile texture of the leather or plastic under your palms. You bring your awareness to the ergonomic comfort of the seat supporting your spine. You notice the precise warmth of the heater counteracting the cold morning air.
Really sinking into the present moment.
You sink into the localized physical comfort, and you actively generate a profound physiological feeling of appreciation for the engineering that created that moment.
You are intentionally overriding the external stress trigger, the traffic, by utilizing a micro detail in your environment to force a positive biochemical cascade. You are changing the cellular weather right there in the fast lane.
You are feeding the rendering engine a command line of abundance, comfort, and stability, regardless of the chaotic pixels outside the windshield.
That's incredibly powerful.
The fourth practice moves from those brief interrupts to sustained programming. We could refer to it as Innersize.
Innersize, like exercise, but directed at the cognitive architecture.
Precisely. The neural plasticity of the brain operates on the exact same principles as muscular hypertrophy. You would never perform one bicep curl on a Tuesday and expect a permanent physiological transformation in your arm.
No, you have to keep lifting.
You have to apply progressive overload. You must train your inner faculties with the same relentless consistency. Innersize means treating focused visualization and dedicated meditation not as a luxury, but as a non-negotiable daily hygienic practice for your consciousness.
Like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. This is the dedicated time where you step entirely out of the rendered frame, open the command terminal, and deliberately construct the highly detailed, emotionally resonant image of the reality you intend to experience.
You feel the joy of it as a present tense reality.
Yes. You are actively, methodically building the energetic history of your future.
The concept of building the energetic history of my future is brilliant, but I imagine there is a final piece to this puzzle that bridges the gap. Because despite all this inner programming, we are still currently occupying these dense biological avatars. We can't just live entirely in our heads.
The physical vessel is vital. You can't ignore it. The final key is intentional physical movement. Earlier, we discussed the universal principle of correspondence. As within, so without. The inner dictates the outer.
Right.
But the principle is a feedback loop. It flows efficiently in both directions. As without, so within.
Meaning the body affects the mind, too.
If your biological avatar is stagnant, physically rigid, slouching over a keyboard in a compressed posture for 10 hours a day, that physical stagnation will inevitably reflect back upward and pollute the mental space. The command line becomes sluggish and rigid.
Oh, I can physically validate that. If I remain seated at my desk for too long, my cognitive processing literally feels like it is moving through molasses. The thoughts become heavy and repetitive.
By taking decisive, intentional physical action to shift the avatar standing up, executing a sequence of deep dynamic stretches, going for a brisk walk in the cold air, feeling the distinct impact of your heels striking the pavement, You are directly uncluttering the mental terminal.
Shaking off the dust.
You are breaking up dense, energetic blocks. A flexible, oxygenated, flowing biological system acts as an incredibly efficient conduit for a flexible, high-frequency flowing mind.
So when we zoom out and really synthesize all of this data, what we are ultimately looking at is a profound demystification of reality creation.
It takes the magic out and replaces it with mechanics.
These cheat codes, the time log, the waking up interrupts, the sensory appreciation bursts, the mental innersize, the physical movement, they do not require anyone to quit their corporate job, sell all their possessions, and retreat to a silent monastery on a remote mountaintop to find enlightenment.
Not at all. It's built for daily life.
They are deceptively small, seemingly mundane, almost invisible shifts in where we allocate our daily attention. A 30-second pause here. A moment of deep sensory gratitude for a warm cup of coffee there, a 10-minute walk.
But the compound effect is staggering.
Cumulatively, neurochemically and quantum mechanically, these micro shifts dismantle the old rendering loop and systematically rewrite the overarching energetic history of our existence.
You are consistently altering the fundamental input at the level of the player, in the superset, which means, mathematically and inevitably, the reality of the character rendered on the screen must eventually morph to reflect the new code.
Internalizing this framework requires a massive, almost terrifying paradigm shift in how we view our individual agency in the universe.
It's a huge responsibility to take on.
We spend so much of our lives feeling incredibly small. We are conditioned to feel like fragile, vulnerable biological machines tossed around at the absolute mercy of a random, chaotic, and frequently cruel external environment.
Yet the synthesis of quantum physics, biology, and information theory we have explored today points to the exact opposite conclusion. We are not the passive victims of a pre-rendered architecture. We are the active architects of the system.
We are holding the controller.
The physical world, with all its weight and density, is not a prison cell that we are doomed to rattle the bars of. It is a highly responsive canvas. It is a dense, delayed echo, possessing no inherent power of its own, simply waiting with infinite patience for our conscious instructions.
A delayed echo. That is such a piercing, profound lens through which to view the physical objects and circumstances surrounding us right now. It completely diffuses the anxiety of the present moment.
You don't have to fight it anymore.
You don't have to fight the present reality. You don't have to attack the mirror, because what you are looking at is already gone. It is just the lingering echo of a past frequency.
Your only true responsibility, and your ultimate source of power, is to meticulously curate the sound you're making right now.
Which leaves us with a deeply lingering, highly personal question to consider. I want you, the person listening to this right now, to take a moment and genuinely look around your immediate environment.
Really look at it.
Look at the room you are sitting in. Consider the current status of your career, the trajectory of your relationships, the people populating your daily life. If all of it, every single solid thing, is simply a delayed echo of the person you were a few weeks or months ago, what magnificent, beautiful echo are you intentionally setting up for yourself right at this exact fleeting second?
It has been a profoundly engaging experience to deconstruct this framework with you. May your internal weather patterns remain perpetually sunny, and may your future echoes materialize exactly as you intend them to.
Stay fiercely curious, keep a close watch on your internal command line, and we will catch you on the next exploration.